Anyone else coming up? I'll be Desiderata.
You want to be Desiderata? Okay.
Yeah. Well, she's kind of old. Do you want to be Desiderata?
You're good at doing old lady voices. Give them your old lady voice.
I was just going to do Desiderata. She's only in this one scene, but if someone else wants to.
Yeah, she's just going to die. That's the whole point.
But that had been 80 years earlier, when the idea of knowing exactly when you were going to die had seemed quite attractive, because secretly, of course, you knew that you were going to live forever. And that was then, and this was now. Forever did not seem to last as long these days as it once did. Another log crumbled to ash in the fireplace.
Stop, Death.
Desiderata hadn't bothered to order any fuel for the winter.
Come up when Death comes.
There wasn't much point,
Don't
really.
bend up the stool there, Jerome. You're going to make it crack.
Don't bug me about what
Please throw it up there.
But how does she know that she's not going to cause her own death of cold by doing that?
She's a witch.
She knows everything. Now let's go.
And then, of course, there was this other thing. She had wrapped it up carefully into a long, slim package. Now she folded up the letter, addressed it, and pushed it under the string. Job done. She looked up. Desiderata had been blind for 30 years, but this hadn't been a problem. She'd always been blessed, if that was the word, with second sight. So when the ordinary eyes gave out, you just trained yourself to see into the present, which anyway is easier than the future. And since the eyeball of the occult did not depend on light, you saved on candles. There was always a silver lining if you knew where to look, in a manner of speaking. There was a mirror on the wall in front of her. The face in it was not her own, which was round and pink. It was the face of a woman who was used to giving orders. Desiderata was not the sort to give orders, quite the reverse, in fact. And the woman said, "You're dying, Desiderata." "I am that too." "You've grown old. Your sort always do. Your power's nearly gone." "That's a fact, Lilith," said Desiderata mildly. "So your protection is withdrawing from her?" "Afraid so," said Desiderata. "So now it is just me and the evil swamp woman, and I will win." "That's how it seems, I'm afraid. You should have found a successor." "I never had the time. I'm not the planning sort, you know." The face in the mirror got closer, as if the figure had moved a little nearer to its side of the mirror. "You've lost, Desiderata Hollow." "So it goes." Desiderata got to her feet, a little unsteadily, and picked up a cloth. The figure in the mirror seemed to be getting angry. It clearly felt that people who had lost ought to look downcast, not as if they were enjoying a little private joke at your expense. "Don't you understand what losing means?" "Well, some people are very clear about that," said Desiderata. "Goodbye, milady." She hung the cloth over the mirror. There was an angry intake of breath, and then silence.
That's not silence, that.
Sorry.
Desiderata stood as if lost in thought. And then she raised her head and said, "The kettle boiled just now. Would you like a cup of tea?"
"No, thank you,"
said a voice right behind her. "So how long have you been waiting?"
"Forever.
I'm not keeping you, am I?
It's a quiet night."
I'm making a cup of tea. I think there's one biscuit left."
"No, thank you."
You're so great, Josh.
"Well, if you feel peckish, it's in the jar on the mantelpiece. That's genuine Clatchian pottery, you know, made by genuine Clatchian craftsmen. From Clatch."
Yep, Clatch.
"Indeed."
I used to get out a lot in my younger days.
"Yes."
Great times." Desiderata poked at the fire. "It was the job, you see. Of course, I expect it's very much the same for you."
"Yes."
"I never knew when I was going to be called out." "Well, of course, you would know about that, wouldn't you?" "Kitchens, mainly. It always seems to be kitchens. Balls, sometimes, but generally kitchens." She picked up the kettle and poured the boiling water into the teapot on the hearth.
"Indeed."
"I used to grant their wishes." Death looked puzzled.
"What, you mean like fitted cupboards? You sick?" "That kind of thing."
"Oh, no, the people." Desiderata sighed. It's a big responsibility, fairy godmothering. Knowing when to stop. I mean, people whose wishes get granted often don't turn out to be very nice people.
Ah.
So, should you give them what they want, or what they need? Death nodded politely. From his point of view, people got what they were given. Like this Genua thing, Desiderata began. And Death looked up sharply.
Genua.
You know it. Oh, well, of course you would.
I know everywhere, of course.
Nice.
Desiderata's expression softened. Her inner eyes were looking elsewhere. There was two of us. Godmothers, they go in twos, you know. So me and Lady Lilith. There's a lot of power in godmothering. It's like being part of history.
Really?
Anyway, this girl was born, out of wedlock, but none the worse of that. It wasn't as if they couldn't have married, they just never got round to it. And Lilith wished for her to have beauty and power and marry a prince.
Oh, wow.
And she's been working on that ever since. So what can I do? You can't argue with wishes like that. Lilith knows the power of a story. Now, I've done the best I could, but Lilith's got the power. I hear she runs the city now, changing a whole country just to make the story work. And now it's too late, anyway. For me. So, I'm handing on the responsibility. That's how it goes with fairy godmothering. No one ever wants to be a fairy godmother. Except Lilith, of course. Got to be in her bonnet about it. So I'm sending someone else. I may have left things too late. Desiderata was a kindly soul. Fairy godmothers develop a very deep understanding about human nature, which makes the good ones kind, and the bad ones powerful. She was not someone to use extreme language, but it was possible to be sure that when she deployed a mild term like a bee in her bonnet, she was using it to define someone whom she believed to be several miles over the madness horizon and accelerating.
Nice.
She poured out the tea. That's the trouble with second sight, she said. You can see what's happening, but you don't know what it means. I've seen the future. There's a coach made out of a pumpkin, and that's impossible. And there's coachmen made out of mice, and that's unlikely. And there's a clock striking midnight, which, that's less unlikely. And something about a glass slipper, and it's all going to happen, because that's how stories have to work. But then I thought, I know some people who make stories work their way. She sighed again. I wish I was going to Genua, she said. I could do with the warmth. And it's Fat Tuesday coming up. I always went to Genua for Fat Tuesday in the old days. There was an expectant silence. And Death said,
You surely are not asking me to grant a wish.
No one grants a fairy godmother's wishes. Desiderata had that inward look again, her voice talking to herself. You see, I got to get the three of them to Genua. Got to get them there because I've seen them there. It's got to be all three, and that ain't easy with people like them. Got to use headology. Got to make them send themselves. Got to tell Esme Weatherwax that she's got to go somewhere, because she won't go out of contrariness. So tell her she's not to go, and she'll run over there over broken glass. That's the thing about the Weatherwaxes, you see. They don't know how to be beaten. Something seemed to strike her as funny. One of them's going to have to learn. Death said nothing. From where he sat, Desiderata reflected, losing was something that everyone learned. She drained her tea, and she stood up, put on her pointy hat with a certain amount of ceremony, and hobbled out the back door. There was a deep trench dug under the trees a little way from the house, down into which someone had thoughtfully put a short ladder. She climbed in, and with some difficulty heaved the ladder onto the leaves. Then she lay down. And she sat up. Oh, Mr. Churt, the troll down at the sawmill, he does a very good deal on coffins, if you don't mind pine.
I shall definitely bear it in mind.
And I got Herker, the porcher, to dig this hole out for me, she said conversationally. He's going to come along and fill it in on his way home. I believe in being neat. So take it away, maestro.
What? Oh, a figure of speech.
He raised his scythe. Desiderata Hollow went to her rest.
What, in a bed?
Well,
In her trench.
Carolyn.
I know.
She's dead.
that's funny.
I know she's dead.
That's good. Well, she said that was easy. What happens now? All right.
Wow, it's been 30 minutes.
And that's the end of that section. Should we pick it up tomorrow night?
Yeah.
I guess.
All right.
That was
Cool.
funny. I want to hear some bits about. I want to hear some bits.
Okay.